everyone. Welcome back to KXAN Plus. I am your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our Weather Answers with Rich, Meteorologist Rich Segal, who's going to break down some of your biggest weather questions. To do this with me, of course, is our KXAN Meteorologist Rich Segal. Rich, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. This is a rare weekend for me to be working an evening shift, but Tommy's out today, and Freddie wanted to go to the music festival, which you
Well
have up on the
deserved.
monitor behind
Yeah.
you. So wave to him. Maybe he'll wave back.
Maybe he's watching us. He's staring at the camera.
And so it's nice to be here. It's quiet here on the afternoons
Yeah.
on the weekend.
We both don't work weekends, or we both do work weekends, but we don't work nights. So
No.
it's very different, right?
Exactly.
Well, we are here to discuss some of the viewers' biggest questions, and they've prepared a few questions for us today, and I'm going to pop up that first one. And
All
that
right.
first one is not really a question, but more of an ask. Talk about the La Nina that's happening and when El Nino will return.
About a month or so ago, there was a La Nina advisory issued, and the ocean temperature anomaly that we're showing you here is indicating a lot of blue, and that is the cooler waters of the equatorial Pacific. And so, with that in mind, the advisory was issued. It is still in effect that the winter season is going to be in the throes of a La Nina. Now, we take a look at the odds of El Nino and La Nina. The La Nina odds are for September, October, November, December, and November, December, January in the fall season. The odds are pretty good for the La Nina, but we're more concerned about the winter, meteorological winter, December, January, February, and that blue bar indicates a greater than 50% likelihood that a La Nina will happen, and we feel that that is going to happen. And then you see the blue bar start to drop as we head into the spring season, but we see a little uptick in the El Nino. So that means the bar in the middle, the gray bar that you see, okay, that is neutral. That means that neither La Nina nor El Nino are going to affect the area. So we're going to eventually wind up going back to where we had that about a few months ago. Now, let's cycle past this and go to our next map, which is showing you that in a La Nina pattern, and you see going from Southern California on through New Mexico, Arizona, and into Texas. You see a couple of colors there. You see that purple shade and you see that orange shade. And the purple shade indicates drier than normal. The orange shade indicates warmer than normal. And that's because that jet stream, that blue arrow that you see that snakes across the Pacific Northwest and then dives through Nebraska and Kansas and then heads back into the Northeast, that stays to our north. And so as a result, we don't get much precipitation. Most of the precipitation is in the Pacific Northwest and on into the Great Lakes region. So specifically for us, the La Nina for Central Texas, it's a 54% likelihood of that La Nina happening in December, January, February. And again, we talk about meteorological versus astronomical. Meteorological winter is those 3 months of December, January, and February. And we do that because record keeping is a whole lot easier since astronomical seasons vary by a day or two each year. The storm track will move further to the north, limiting the amount of rain that we may see and giving us those warmer than normal temperatures, a lot like we've been having lately. Again, drier, warmer. Now, last winter, we did get a drier than normal 3 month of December, January, February with 4 and 83 inches of rain, which was a deficit of 2.42. But we only were 0.2 of a degree below normal, and that's rare in a La Nina, but that's because December had a record warmth. I don't have the numbers. I left my pad of paper in my office, but last winter, the average temperature was just 0.2 of a degree below normal because of that record warm December. So all that said, it means that we are going to continue with a drier pattern that we've seen for the last month and a half as we approach the winter season. And that also likely will eliminate the potential, it seems like, maybe for any snow.
Of course, especially not here in Texas. We barely get any snow during the winter. Are you anticipating that it's going to be a warmer than normal December for us this year?
I think so. With the La Nina odds being as much as they are at that 54% ratio, that's a pretty good idea that we are going to. Now, we will have warmer than normal temperatures, not every day. There may be a couple of days where we get a cold front that comes through that maybe drops temperatures briefly into near normal to below normal. But I think on the whole, we may face another December like we did last year.
Interesting. Not looking forward to that at all, by the way.
Yes, exactly.
Well, our second question for you is why have there been no Gulf tropical storms? We're still not done with hurricane season, so why is it so quiet?
It has been quiet for a couple of reasons. And on my graph, it says, well, first of all, the water temperatures in the Gulf and the Western Gulf, especially from Galveston down to Brownsville and into Mexico, I looked at them just before I came in here. They've been in the low to mid 80s. Last year, around this time, they were still in the mid to a few upper 80s. Most of the storms that we get that do enter the Gulf come through the Atlantic and the Caribbean, and we knew that the Atlantic season was very quiet because of a strong high in the central part of the Atlantic Ocean that limited any storms from developing, and that's why we had that huge lull between Fernand and Gabrielle. And so the high, as we tell you frequently, high pressure leads to dry and stable air.
Yep.
So there was no opportunity for anything really to develop.
Are we seeing that pattern like lately here in Central Texas, all around us too?
Yes. There has also been an upper level ridge of high pressure in and around the state. We've had one for the last several days. Today it's moved from West Texas on into northern Mexico. And as that high sticks around, it really puts the limit on anything coming through the Gulf, any little disturbances to come through to give us any rain. And of course, as we mentioned again, and it's worth mentioning, the reason most of those storms originate in the Atlantic, well, they come off the coast of Africa. Well, there's still, even though we don't see it here, there is still the Saharan dust layer that continues to mess with any storms to develop in the tropical Atlantic. And so that's why the Gulf has been so quiet. There just hasn't been any activity since, July. And of course, we know what the remnants of Barry did in the terrible flooding that occurred up in the hill country out in Kerr County.
Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's been a lot of showers or storms in Veracruz, Mexico. They're seeing a lot of flooding right now, so that's where all the water is going, right?
Yes, exactly. Whatever storm systems, whatever weather systems originate either off the in the Bay of Campeche or even in the far eastern Pacific, that seems to continue to show a lot of activity. And so the rains have stayed in Mexico, and there have been, as you just indicated correctly, there have been some flooding rains as a result. But nothing for us.
Nothing for us. Would it be similar to when we had the flooding here in July, when we saw storms in Mexico and then that high pressure stayed over us for a while and we ended up getting the storms? Would we get that from those storms in Veracruz, or would it have to come from a different area?
No, it would have to come from a different area. We were hoping that we might see a little moisture coming in from the two storms that recently affected the eastern Pacific and the western part of Mexico, Priscilla and Raymond, but they both fizzled out before they ever really could get generated or could get going. And so as long as high pressure continues to sit in this area, the chance of rain is really limited, if at all.
So this month, October, is obviously drier than normal because it's supposed to be our wettest month, right?
So second wettest.
Second wettest.
3.91 inches. It's the second wettest month of the calendar year. There is another question that's coming up here that which will make some people, I hope, smile, but we'll get to that in a few seconds.
Our third question, though, is how has the government shutdown affected the Weather Service? This is a great question.
Yeah, a lot of people have been concerned about this when DOGE did their cuts and all that. The government shutdown does affect some aspects of the National Weather Service. However, and you see it, I have 4 yeses and 1 no.
Yeah.
Critical forecast information is still going to be disseminated because that can't stop. It's like the air traffic controllers. They are needed. These forecasts are needed. Watch warning information needed, valuable. Again, life-saving. Fire weather alerts, life-saving. The National Hurricane Center continues to operate. Fortunately, and I don't mean to make fun of this, but fortunately, there are only 2 systems, one in the Pacific, one in the Atlantic, that may generate into something coming up. But for now, there's a brief lull. We got rid of the two named storms in the Atlantic, Jerry and Karen, and the two storms in the Eastern Pacific, Priscilla and Raymond. They're both gone. So the National Hurricane Center continues to operate, but outreach activities, for example, the Weather Service here during the spring season does the severe weather workshops to have people come in and learn a little bit about watches and warnings and what to look for and how they can report to the Weather Service. Well, they're not doing anything of like that right now, and they're not doing any public tours of Weather Service offices as long as the shutdown continues. And I am sad to say that, like the other people who are deemed essential, our National Weather Service fellows and ladies are not getting paid.
Yeah.
And we knew that.
Yes, we did. We are live right now on Facebook and YouTube, and we have a comment on our YouTube. It's from Big John 512, and he wants to know when the cold weather is coming. He said, when is Nicole coming? I don't know who Nicole is, but when is the cold weather coming is his question.
Well, it depends. Here again, it's non-specific. It depends on your definition of cold. Now, if we're talking about freezing temperatures, we know we have a limited amount of that. The average first freeze that we have here in Central Texas, well, first of all, in the Austin area, comes in late November into early December. That's the average first freeze, around November 30th. There's a time frame of the 28th to December 2nd. In some of the areas, specifically out in the hill country, that freeze comes a little bit earlier. And that, by the way, is part of my blog that I wrote yesterday, too. So we can count on that first freeze coming. I'm going to say that for some of the area, and especially in the hill country, I think it's going to come in late November, early December. And then for the Austin area, you know, it may come later than that. Last year, we didn't have the first freeze in Austin until January of 2025. It didn't freeze at all in December. I think
it was more action during like February, end of January, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, our fourth question, and this one is the one you were waiting for, is it ever going to rain again, Rich?
So I was putting the map together. This is the European model. This is Sunday next weekend, not today.
I got excited.
This is next weekend. There is a cold front, an honest-to-goodness cold front that is forecast to move into the area.
Cold's not cool?
We don't say that because there's no such thing as a cool front. But this is an honest-to-goodness cold front that looks to enter the area during the morning on Sunday. Now, there won't be that much aerial coverage. This is a little exaggerated, but it's the first time that we're seeing any rain show up in the area. And since the early part of September, when we had 400s on the first Sunday of September at Mabry and 1600s at the airport. So we're looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to being very busy next Sunday morning when our show starts at 6 a.m. But again, well, let's hold on.
I'm looking forward to waking up Sunday morning on my drive here and being chilly.
Well, don't look for that. It'll be in the 60s on next Sunday morning, but
not too cold.
The highs will drop below 90 for the first time for a while. We have had more 90-degree high temperatures this year than we had in all of 2024. We had 152 in 2024, and so far this year we're at 154.
Yeah, we had more 90 than triple digits this year for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think those are all of the questions that we have, but I do want to talk about that post that you made yesterday, your blog post.
All right, so this was another one from our friends over at Climate Central. Well, hold on. Let me go back. I think I can't avoid. I kept a banner in. Yeah, I didn't want to keep that banner in. So forget the banner. Just talk about the freeze. Climate Central did a study analyzing 204 cities in the United States, the lower 48, about how in about 88% of them, or 179, the first freeze happened later than it was supposed to happen, and by as much as 12 days, and in 70 of those cities, more than 2 weeks. There are cities out in the west, including Reno, Nevada, that has gone 41 days past its normal first freeze date. Sadly, and if you'll come back and get off the graphic because I just wanted you to see that. Sadly, the study did not look at Austin. It just said because there's not enough frequency to determine, sometimes early, sometimes late. What amazed me was that of the 10 cities in Texas that the survey did look at, 8 of them had freezes coming later than normal, but 2 of them, and the 2 closest to Austin, San Angelo and Waco, had freezes that started earlier than normal. For Waco, that would be earlier than November 21st, and for San Angelo, that would be earlier than November 8th. And so this is what I wrote about, and I'm glad I caught my error here. I'm always good for at least one of these mess ups, aren't I? El Paso, by the way, had the largest gap between the normal first freeze and when the first freeze actually happens. And this is data that was collected from early 1970 until 2024.
Wow, that's a lot of data that they collected to give us all that information. Your article is published on our website. It's called "For Some Texas Cities, the First Freeze is Coming Earlier, Others Later." This is that graphic without the banner.
There you go. That's it.
Mm-hmm. And then we have some more graphics here about first freezes arriving later. All of this information, again, is on our website, KXAN.com. Look at that. Earliest first freeze, November 26th. This is in Waco.
It's in Waco, and there's the one for San Angelo. And then if you scroll down towards the very bottom, you will see the average first freeze for Central Texas.
Right here, it says November 11th, 20th in the Hill Country, like you mentioned, November 28th through December 1st, but probably not this year, right?
Perhaps not, but the story will also tell you when the first freeze happened in 2025, because it didn't happen in late 2024.
Yeah, it was not a 2024 freeze, it was a 2025 freeze.
Yes, and there were some other questions that I didn't get to that we will get to next week. One of them involves, why is the summer solstice not the hottest day and the winter solstice not the coldest day of the year? I'll get to that next week. And the other one, which I wrote a blog about in 2024, but will be glad to answer again, has to do with whether there is a rain bubble over Austin.
That is a big conspiracy that I've heard a lot about since moving here.
Yes,
I'm
there
excited.
Or isn't there? But we'll answer that next week.
Well, we will debunk that next week, right?
Maybe not.
Well, Rich, for anyone who is watching us live right now, thanks so much for joining us. I do want to mention I am working hard on getting a little QR code that we can display on the screen for our live viewers who can send in those questions, and then Rich and I can see them immediately as soon as they pop up, and we can answer them quickly. So continue to watch us live. We love our live viewers. Thank you for joining us. If you can't watch us live but you still want to join us, Rich, where can they watch us?
Oh gosh, Apple TV, Roku TV, Fire TV, and Samsung.
There you go. You got all of them. We're free on the App Store, wherever you get your streams, KXAN Plus, where Rich just mentioned. You can watch Weather Answers with Rich. We have lots of previous shows with fun questions, as well as other KXAN Plus originals. But this is all for today. Rich, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks, Esme.